To the feature match area we go. Steven Dykman, he is on your left. He is 10-0. Raymond Perez, he is on your right. He is 9-1. Green-black aggro against blue-red control. They've been given the green light, and we will be underway here right now as a swamp here from Dykman starts round number 11. Perez with a Spire Bluff Canal. For Dykman, it's an Ether Hub. He'll have an energy. He'll use the energy. And the snake. So the snake in Whining Constrictor, kind of, you know, it's weird to say this. It's a lot like Hardened Scales.
Sure.
Was for that deck. If it lives, it's awesome. If it doesn't, it's okay, but your deck is on steroids when you actually have it. This is a Walking Ballista. 2 counters.
Yep, that's twice as good.
Shock
and it was
it.
already good to begin with.
Take 2. Unfortunately for Dykman, no third land.
And also one of his lands here is a used up Ether Hub too.
Also bad. Drew a copy of Cletus. Not a great draw step. In for 2.
But the snake is still fine.
Another copy of Walking Ballista. Does this resolve? It appears to. Now here's an Anticipate from Perez. Perez is going to take a Disallow from that Anticipate. Now he'll draw a card. See if he's got a 4th land to play. I have to imagine he does because he went by one with an Anticipate. It looks like he has a Wandering Fumarole there. Walking Ballista, Brennan DeCandio said in his deck tech that you just got finished watching that he believes that this is the best rare / mythic from Aether Revolt.
Strong words, but, you know, 2-cost Mog Fanatic, already reasonable card to consider playing in a format with the Saheeli Rai combo, and it's quite a bit more than that.
Disallow will take care of the Aether Sphere Harvester. Perez cannot let that vehicle resolve. So now we head back over to Ray Perez. Disallow, one of my early favorites from Aether Revolt. I will say that. I think that Walking Ballista is probably a little better. It's apple to oranges.
Yes.
I think they're very different cards, but I'm a big fan of Disallow.
I like to take lands and artifacts over double blue cards, if you had to guess on what's going to be the most impactful thing. But I think Disallow is great too.
Here's a Jason Raveler of Secrets. Perez would like to take care of this Walking Ballista. So the bounce will occur, and Perez is basically saying, I know that my thing is going to die.
That was not a great moment for Jace.
Well, I think that, my assumption is that Raymond Perez is fine with this exchange.
I just don't think he, I'm imagining what's going on right now is Perez is just trying to buy enough time to get to Torrential Gearhulk. Try to stabilize that way.
And that's what his deck is all about. Is there's a Tireless Tracker, that's a land in Blooming Marsh, a clue on the way here.
Is that, no, that's not a counter. That's not a token you
just
get.
One clue, just one clue.
That's confusing.
Here's a hub.
That's confusing.
In energy here for Perez.
Am I wrong? That's like kind of confusing, right?
It's medium confusing. It's medium confusing.
Because when you get counters, feels like clues kind of are like you getting counters.
Sort of.
No, it's just a counter that exists. So that's different.
Well, but it's an artifact. Like, it's on the battlefield for various things.
I know. It makes sense to me now, but there was a half beat that I missed there where I was wondering if you got 2 clues.
Ah, okay, okay. Dykman will draw. Another copy of Whining Constrictor. Good in multiples.
Yes, because then you get, you know, more of them.
Yeah, three clues.
Then you get 3 clues.
Yeah. Now, when you're against an opponent who has 6 mana available, you're assuming Torrential Gearhulk. And yeah, I think if I'm Steven, I'm going to give this some pause and say, what's worst case scenario here if he does have Torrential Gearhulk? What if he doesn't? How do I want to play?
Well, I think he has Grasp in hand, which means that an attack is fairly safe here.
Well, here he comes.
As he can grasp the Torrential Gearhulk, and there's not really a block to be made, assuming that the Gearhulk goes and makes a block. I suppose the line of play here is Perez can just target the shock and try to force a little bit of action here, but there's really no good block if he's playing around Grasp.
Looks like Perez is just going to take the damage. No block. Second main phase, Walking Ballista. Torrential Gearhulk. We'll disallow that.
And I like Perez there not trying to get involved in combat because of the likelihood of grasp is just so high and it goes bad for him. If he gets to untap with mana up, then things maybe get a little bit safe for him.
Yeah, I think there's just way too much that goes wrong.
2 counters on the Tireless Tracker.
You see that?
That's an interaction.
Perez is going to take a look at Tireless Tracker. We can do the same here. Make sure that we are aware of that powerful green creature. When land is in the battlefield under your control, you get to investigate, which means you get a clue. Whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a +1/+1 counter on Tireless Tracker in combination with Winding Constrictor. 2.
That's 2 of them.
2 counters.
And 1 was already a lot.
That's a good deal. Blooming Marsh. Another clue. And now we'll see how Dykman wants to move forward, because this turn, and I like what Perez did last turn, which was not get involved in combat.
Right.
Because now he's got counter magic available, he's got removal spells. This is much more difficult for Dykman to play around when the big 5/6 is there and mana's available. That said, Dykman, he's only got one avenue to victory, and that's through the attack step. So here he comes.
And Tireless Tracker is attacking for lethal here.
Perez is looking at a copy of Glimmer of Genius. I believe he has a copy of Disallow. There's some stuff going on here. But to note, unlike Ryan Overturf, where we saw kick-off coverage yesterday, we did a deck attack with him, no black mana. So nothing like to the slaughter for Dykman to worry about, though it's unclear if he actually knows that. As Perez starts by activating Wandering Fumarole, Grasp of Darkness will go after the creature land.
And even if Perez wants to disallow this, that means the Fumarole is tapped and no longer an eligible blocker.
Mm-hmm. Perez has Revolutionary Rebuff. Actually kind of good right now.
Yeah, it squeezes Dykman here quite a bit, because if Dykman wants to pay for this, that means the Torrential Gearhulk can then safely block the Tireless Tracker.
A little bit surprising how good this is right now.
And swallows it up.
Mm-hmm. And the rebuff will counter the Grasp.
Yeah, it's just too bad for Dykman here to... The Tireless Tracker has too much value in this spot for him to allow it to get swallowed up by the Torrential Gearhulk.
Now the question is, does Dykman have another Grasp? And I believe in his hand he does. I believe his hand is Kalidas, Winding Constrictor, and a second Grasp of Darkness. Perez is thinking double block.
Well, if Dykman wants to sacrifice a clue, it's his whole turn. The Tireless Tracker goes up to a 7/6. So it trades off... And I guess if it's a 7/6, Perez can flip the Fumarole into a 1/4, still kill the Tireless Tracker, and only lose one of the two things. We presume it would be the Torrential Gearhulk.
I think he loses both, right? Gearhulk's a 5/6, Fumarole will be a 4/1.
I'm saying he can flip it and still kill the Tracker, because it's a 7/6.
Oh, sure, right. So 5/1.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
He can go to a 1/4.
Gotcha.
Still keep one of the two cards.
Okay.
Very nice block there from Perez.
Yeah. And a block there that plays around Grasp of Darkness.
Yes.
So there's actually lots of life.
Well, it induces the clue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Dykman has to sacrifice the clue to get large enough to touch the Torrential Gearhulk anyway. Very nicely done. But Perez is not out of the woods yet.
No.
And
No.
Dykman's got a handful of spells.
A hub. Some energy there for Raymond and a passing of the turn. We head back over to Dykman. He'll untap and draw. Dykman's the one that has more cards here. Here's 4 mana. Kalidas pre-combat. Steven's hand is good. He's got a Virtuous Gearhulk, another copy of Winding Constrictor, a Tireless Tracker, and I still believe he has that Grasp. Perez says, I'm going to disallow, thank you. Now what does Steven want to do? So I don't know if Raymond Perez is going to win this game, but I think he's played a good game.
Definitely.
He's going to activate Wandering Fumarole. Grasp of Darkness is going to take care of that. Perez is going to fall down to 1.
We've noticed, when we watch the control decks in action so far this weekend, there's a lot of swimming upstream because it's very hard to get out of the first 4 turns without being really behind on the board. And often tapping out for your Planeswalker or whatever you try to do to pull ahead leaves you very vulnerable to a powerful proactive threat. That's what's happened here. I mean, it was really just Winding Constrictor into Walking Ballista. Perez took a bunch of damage off of that early start. And Dykman was missing land drops. So it wasn't like he was really following up with very much. And Perez has done a very nice job of trying to stabilize this game and keeping himself alive and making decent trades. But that early damage that he took, I don't know what it was, 8, 10, 12 points, he's sort of been trying to crawl back from that the whole time. And remains unclear if he's going to be able to do so.
Yeah, the expectation with a deck like this, blue-red control deck the Raymond's playing, or any deck, kind of Jeskai, Nixus, what have you, is Torrential Gearhulk. Catch me up, please.
Yep.
And, the first one was good. The second one, if he can find it, will be good. Perez's last card will be Glimmer of Genius, so he's going to scry 2.
I think Dykman has a Walking Ballista to finish this off.
Well, if he has one of those, the game will be over. But actually, I think it's actually a Harvester.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So we're not done quite yet. Perez with 4 energy, 2 new cards in hand. Doesn't look like they're particularly good, as he scried both to the bottom from the Glimmer and had to draw 2 random cards. Now Dykman's got to figure out, okay, how do I want to maximize my chances of winning next turn?
I think if he plays I like Winding Constrictor plus the vehicle, just spread out a little bit. You're not exposed to a sweeper that way. This is fine too. Just I like getting the vehicle and a creature onto the battlefield this turn.
2 angles.
2 angles. You don't really care that much about a sweeper or an unsummon effect because you still have the vehicle left over.
Harness Lightning in Perez's hand now.
I also don't know if he has anything in the graveyard that can touch the vehicle if he happens to find Torrential Gearhulk, which is another small bonus.
Okay. Okay.
I think I would have erred on the side of playing the Winding Constrictor over the Tireless Tracker. 1, because he doesn't have a land to follow up with, and 2, because Shock answers the Tireless Tracker and doesn't answer the 2/3. But in any case, I like getting the 2 threats on the battlefield. And I would much prefer to do this than playing the Tireless Tracker and the Winding Constrictor.
Got it. Got it. Well, Perez does have Torrential Gearhulk in hand.
It looks like he also has a copy of
Harness
Lightning. The problem is the land in his hand is the 1 copy of Highland Lake.
Yep.
So he can't harness.
So now he has to Glimmer. Okay, he's going to take both cards.
Untapped land and another Glimmer.
Yep. And he's got Gearhulk as a blocker. So he's hanging on.
Yep.
Hanging on. Tell you what, man.
It's fun to watch. It is fun to watch the struggle.
Yeah, and Torrential Gearhulk is a real card.
This is an inspiring performance here for all you Control fans out here.
Yeah, just barely hanging on. And not even, well, hanging on is the wrong word because he's not even close to winning.
Right. And he's doing it all with cancels and shocks.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
it's not like he's playing with that many powerful cards outside of Torrential Gearhulk.
All right, here's Virtuous Gearhulk. Looks like all the counters are going to go on a Tireless Tracker. Or at least the target will be Tireless Tracker. Tune up the band. This could go very bad for Steven Dykman. Oh, that's a flyer.
Yeah, he's pretty safe here because
Right.
the Torrential Gearhulk is a chump blocker right now, and the vehicle's a flyer. So there's no way that he gets blown out on the table.
Yep. I keep forgetting that Harvester flies.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I just think like, oh, that's just like a 3/5, and so he'll block the Harvester with the Gearhulk and then shoot down the Tireless Tracker. But like, nope. Draw a card. Are there more Gearhulks to be found? Brutal Expulsion was the draw.
Is there a way to cobble another turn out of this?
I'd be pretty impressed if he could. Yeah. Return target spell or creature to its owner's hand, so you could return the tracker, I guess. Deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. 2 damage isn't going to do much on this battlefield. He's probably got a Glimmer into Perfect. Not quite sure what Perfect is here. but he's going to try.
Yeah.
Probably Harness Lightning, honestly. Well, he found one. Oh, the struggle is so real. Yep, got to take one Harness Lightning. Hit 1, hit 2. Slow roll himself a little bit, which I can certainly appreciate. Spire Bluff Canal, Harness Lightning. He'll play that, pass the turn back. Make him think about it.
Yep.
Dykman will untap and draw. Looks like he's going to start by sacrificing a clue, perhaps. Maybe he'll play a Winding Constrictor. Here's Winding Constrictor. Believe that's going to resolve. Perez, well, countering that, you just lose probably if you do that.
There's not even a mistake to be made at that point.
Yeah. And he can't even really bluff Torrential Gearhawk because he only has 4 mana available. So if Raymond Perez makes it to the next turn, he is some kind of master. This is a spot where you really hope that Dykman overthinks things if you're Perez.
And that was a really painful Highland Lake because having to take an untapped land off of that Glimmer of Genius is potentially one spell that he's down, and it feels like one spell away from maybe being able to stabilize this whole thing.
Another Winding Constrictor. So many snakes.
So when the clue is sacrificed,
the world explodes.
Moto crashes.
Yes, correct. Magic Online crashes.
Because there's just so many counters.
Boom.
You know?
A lot of triggers. Harnessed Lightning. Gonna go after the tracker. All right, move a ton of energy. Kill the tracker. I love the fight. All right, I'm dead.
That was great.
I love it.
That was great. That was inspiring.
Maybe you won't attack. I don't know why you wouldn't, but maybe you won't.
Yeah. Great work there, Raymond.
Steven Dykman does win game number 1 here over Raymond Perez. Green-black aggro up a game here over blue-red control. Let's take a look at the sideboards. We're going to start with Raymond Perez, who's got, hello. Haven't seen this card for a while. 3 Dragon Master Outcast, 3 Kozilek's Return, 2 Ceremonious Rejection, 2 Dispel, 2 Summary Dismissal, a Jace Unraveler of Secrets, another copy of Brutal Expulsion, and a Negate.
This is, I think, the big cost of playing a 2-color deck as opposed to 3. Perez does not have access to Radiant Flames. He instead has to go to Kozilek's Return, and Dykman is just packing a lot of 3 toughness. My guess here is the Jace Unraveler of Secrets, the Brutal Expulsion coming in this matchup. He might go to Dragon Master Outcast, assuming Dykman's going to cut a lot of his cheap creature removal. You could talk me into that, too.
Other side of things here for Dykman, 4 Transgress the Mind, 3 Natural State, 2 Lost Legacy, 2 Ob Nixilis Reignited, a Fatal Push, a Murder, a Grasp of Darkness, and a Tireless Tracker.
This one feels pretty straightforward to me. 4 copies of Transgress the Mind and 2 copies of Ob Nixilis should both be great in this matchup. I could also see, I should say, definitely the 1 copy of Tireless Tracker as well. And then if he wanted to change his removal spell a little bit to be better against Torrential Gearhulk, I could see, for example, the copy of Murder coming in as an upgrade over Fatal Push or Grasp of Darkness.
Those are the options there for both players. As we watch our lone undefeated player here in Steven Dykman look to move on to 11-0. Perhaps Raymond Perez will play spoiler. We will continue the match in game number 2 here in just a moment. But let's talk about the Jacob Ball Energy token, which has been very popular here this weekend because energy is a real thing in Kaladesh and Aether Revolt. Jacob Ball won our Atlanta Invitational weekend to qualify himself for the Players' Championship, where he made a deep run, so congratulations to him and the rest of Team Card Hoarder. He's got his Energy Reserve token, which is beautifully done by Star City's own Andrea Radek. And now Patrick will tell you the ways you can go about getting it.
Well, if you can make it out to the SCG Tour, anyone who participates in an Open or a Classic will receive this token for free when you register. And if you can't make it out to the tour, any order from StarCityGames.com beginning January 23rd, which is right around the corner, $5 or greater will be shipped with this token.
Congratulations to Jacob Ball for winning our Atlanta Invitational weekend. And he's having a pretty decent tournament here this weekend as well. A lot of hard work put in 2016, and I expect to see some nice work from him in 2017 as well. Right now, we watch Steven Dykman, our lone undefeated player and former Rookie of the Year, Raymond Perez, or as he likes to call himself, Ray Future Pro. He can play some Magic.
Yes.
He can play.
I like the great efforts in losing games performances.
Yes, me too. Me too.
Giving
it your all.
That was fun to watch. But those early stumbles where he didn't have the right counters or reactive cards to line up against the Winding Constrictor into Walking Ballista, that was kind of the whole game right there. Perez was crawling, climbing, you know, the whole time trying to get back into it. Almost got it flipped around with the Torrential Gear Hulks, but couldn't quite stabilize.
Oh, green black. Maybe a little surprising here that this green black aggro deck is performing as well as it has.
I think Winding Constrictor. I mentioned this yesterday in the broadcast. There are a lot of creatures in the set that I think are very, very powerful on just rate, stats plus good powers that have been overlooked or under-discussed because Saheeli Rai, Felidar Guardian, has consumed so much conversation in the community. The Rogue Refiner was one of those cards that I thought, and now we're seeing it a lot in the 4-color Saheeli builds and probably in some Teamer Energy builds as well. And also, I think Winding Constrictor is one of those cards. The numbers are good, and the power has a very high ceiling, but it just hasn't been discussed nearly as much because Saheeli Rai and Felidar Guardian that's the talk of the town.
I think the nice thing about Winding Constrictor, unlike Hardened Scales not that good of a card on its own. You need other things to go along with it. Winding Constrictor, you know, 2-3, get some beatdowns,
right.
But more importantly, with Winding Constrictor, the cards that you play around it are actually just good cards on their own. So Walking Ballista, Virtuous Gear Hulk, Tireless Tracker, like those are just good Magic cards.
Exactly. And 2-3 is a nice place to be if 4X Shock is in a lot of deck lists.
Yeah. That's going to be kind of the fun game that you play in this format is, okay, what's the removal? What's the damage-based removal, and what's the numbers? So Shock, Galvanic Bombardment, generally just going to be 2 points of damage. Obviously, Bombardment scales, so it could be 3 or 4 at times. But what's the toughness of creatures you're looking for? It might be 3.
Right.
Maybe.
And maybe does that mean that we see more copies of Oath of Chandra and Incendiary Flow kind of crawl up and even replace some copies of Shock, and people risk some percentage points in the Saheeli Rai matchups to have better removal against decks like this?
I think Oath of Chandra is very much on its way.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And that's compelling metagame development, and that's dynamic. And that is, you know, part of the risk of combo decks is that sort of evolution a lot less likely to happen when the interactions aren't as robust.
In combination with Felidar Guardian, I think Oath of Chandra is just, I mean, on its own, I think it's good.
Right.
Because it kills a lot of stuff, but in combination.
It's Volcanic Hammer on its own, which is a passable card.
Yep.
And if you're doing any shenanigans with either Planeswalkers or Felidar Guardian, it becomes quite a bit better.
Yeah, I think that's a place that people are going to explore. Just a couple of dual lands to start here for Dykman. Not a very fast start with Booming Marsh and Hissing Quagmire. Perez will play a Wandering Fumarole and pass the turn back over to Dykman. Dykman, for his third turn, we'll see what he wants to play.
So things already looking much better for Perez this game.
Well, it's a control player stream. Got mana, start interacting. Here's a Harvester. And there's Negate. Time to untap it. And if you are a blue player like Perez, your board's clear going into your fourth turn. And that means Glimmer of Genius with no pressure.
Yep. You're making your land drops. Colored mana situation's good.
And if you get to Glimmer of Genius with your opponent having no pressure or, heaven forbid, you're 20 life, that's a pretty tough game to lose, I think. Yep. Here's Kalidas. Revolutionary Rebuff in hand. Perez says, that's fine. And it just makes sense to me because I think he wants to take the opportunity to do this.
Right. This is enough breathing space.
Scry the top and the bottom, 2 energy. Perez will draw 2 cards. He'll untap, we'll draw another card. So 3 fresh ones here for the former Rookie of the Year. No, don't get it wrong. Kalidas, a heck of a Magic card. But
not at its most powerful in a matchup where the other person barely has creatures.
Yeah. Now, worth noting there, Perez did see 3 fresh new cards, scried 1 at the top and 1 at the bottom, and he did not draw a 5th land. So some mana troubles here from Perez, but what that actually means is he's got a lot of spells in hand. Negate's going to take care of the Harvester. Anticipate will allow Ray to take a look at the top couple of cards. I think he might take that island with him. There's also a hub there, I believe.
Alternatively, if he's fine with the amount of pressure he's under, he can simply take the disallow and just keep trying to trade 1 for 1 and assume that lands will come off the top of his deck. Looks like we just went with the land, though.
Well, take the island, pass the turn back. We'll go back over to Raymond, or we'll go over to Steven Dykman, excuse me. He'll draw a card. believe he picked up a Winding Constrictor. Also has a Tireless Tracker in hand.
Say that's about Torrential Gearhulk. Super powerful card, and in plenty of spots, it's basically a game-winning play. It is not Sphinx's Revelation or Dig Through Time. It is not. Not a win on easy mode.
No, it's not. Rishkar is going to be countered by Revolutionary Rebuff. Yeah.
I think anytime Revolutionary Rebuff counters something that's three or more mana, the person casting the rebuff just feels so good.
Rebuff is a really interesting card to me, actually, because think about it in the previous standard format. It was actually counter-target Ishkana.
That's about it, yeah.
And that's about it. But Ishkana is, and from my conversation with Brendan Candio on our deck tech, Ishkana is just pretty bad now.
Right, I mean,
it appears.
The games are about other things.
Yeah, so Revolutionary Rebuff might be worse, or maybe it might just be better because it's going to counter more things. Like there's no Smuggler's Copter that it can't counter anymore.
Right.
You know, so it might actually just be a reasonable card now. Here's Tireless Tracker. I mean, Perez is 9-1 with it in his deck, so it can't be too bad.
Could you imagine Torrential Gearhulk for a rebuff right here?
The dream. The dream come true. Hissing Quagmire here for Dykman. Perez doing a great job using his life total as a resource. Now here's a Glimmer of Genius. Scry 2. I think that's 2 Gearhulks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like them. I like taking both.
I'm going to take those.
I like taking both.
Take those.
Because of its interaction with spells.
Yeah. I would like both of those things.
And the only reason to potentially ship one to the bottom is if you really, really want land number 7, which is what he just drew anyway.
Yeah. And Dykman will draw.
And what's so awesome about this is it didn't look like he had Torrential Gearhulk last turn. I guess he scried both at the top, so you got to really keep it in mind here. But
I will say this. It's a minor thing, but when you are playing a game, Perez shuffled them back and forth. You know, because me, I'm just going to go like, oh, geez, take them. And then like untap with my turn, play my land smugly, and pass the turn back, which is a dead giveaway. But Perez, he thought about it. He sold it a little bit that, okay, this is a decent thing I've got going on.
And again, I really like the fact that Perez here did not try to just get the Torrential Gearhulk involved in combat. He's willing to take one more hit. I assume he's going to Torrential Gearhulk back a Glimmer of Genius and then untap with all of his cards and all those mana and say, all right, now you want to get into combat.
Yep. We might see him Gearhulk back a Shock now with this on the stack. Yep, there's Gearhulk, Shock there. So Tracker's taken care of. Yes, Dykman will get his card. But this is exactly where Perez wants to be. It's much like last game, but he's in a better position now.
A lot of players that I've watched, both in this tournament and just in general, I think try to rush too much to get their Torrential Gearhulk blocking the turn they cast it. And Perez has shown a lot of discipline here in saying, all right, I'll go to 8. Now come and try to attack me. And you have to worry a lot less about cards like Grasp of Darkness because you have all your mana available. And if he tries to do something fancy in combat, you have counter spells or other reaction to play back at him. Yeah,
Ray and Jim Davis have been the players who have impressed me the most with Gearhulk. Just how they're using it. And if I had to compare the two, I think Ray has done an unbelievable job of using this card and using his life total as a resource this entire game. This, oh, that's that new one. Where are you? Glint Sleeve
is that the
Siphoner.
Is that the Dark Confidant?
Yes.
Okay.
So 2 mana, 2/1, Menace, so that's actually relevant text here. When Glint Sleeve Siphoner enters the battlefield or attacks you, get an energy, and at the beginning of your upkeep, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, you draw a card and lose a life. Hissing Quagmire is going to get fired up. You have to imagine Perez has got an answer for this creature land. Thump. Another Gearhulk. Glimmer. Peel 2. Gonna go up to 6 energy. Let's make it 7 energy and just take the 2, fall down to 6.
Yeah, not a whole lot in value in trading there against the Cletus. You want to get that off the table and then you can start trading.
Looks like you picked up another copy of Torrential Gearhulk. Harness Lightning and a bunch of other options in hand here. Oh, we're clear for takeoff, huh?
It's with opponent at 32, that is a confident attack.
Yeah, I'd be a little afraid. Dykman going to fall down to 27. Look, you got to start getting them dead.
Mm-hmm. Especially attacking in the face of a menace threat on the other side, leaving yourself at one blocker.
Not scared.
The other one's a death touch threat. Your other creature's Kalidas. It's sort of
bring it in.
It does not look like a board where you're supposed to be attacking with a Torrential Gearhulk against an opponent at 32.
Yeah, that would give me caution if I'm Steven. I'm
Yeah.
not attacking with anything.
With that attack, I'm willing to just pack the game up.
Yeah.
I'm obviously beat whatever's going on over there. I don't even want to find out.
Dykman is reaching towards the hissing quagmire again.
I suspect this attack will go poorly. There's not a whole lot else Dykman can do. All his deck does in this spot is just attack with creatures.
Yeah, I mean, he can't sit.
Right.
You know?
I'm just saying, I suspect this is not going to go well.
His deck only deals the 20 damage through combat outside of Walking Ballista, so let's turn these creatures sideways. Let's hope for the best. Harness Lightning's going to start this combat off, going after Kalidas. Kalidas is no longer on the battlefield. Menace.
Illegal block.
Now we have a legal block.
If Perez thought he was going to block the Siphoner, this attack's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not horrible. No. I'm with you on that one.
It's not that bad.
All right, those will trade.
And all these little points of damage matter against a deck that has Walking Ballista in it.
And also, Perez deck has no life gain. Yeah. He just blew red.
Yeah.
So every point counts. Here's Rishkar. Got a disallow in hand. All right, I'll disallow that. It's taken care of. Perez will untap. Perez will draw. Picks up an island. Play the island. Still has another Torrential Gearhulk in hand. He's got the resources, in my opinion, to win the game.
Definitely.
It's just about using them correctly now. That's the tough part. Always is when you play Magic.
And does he want to try to trap with his Torrential Gearhulk, or does he just want to use it straight away now to kill the Siphoner and prevent Dykman from drawing a card? Because now Dykman's up to 2 energy.
In for 5. Well, there's the Gearhulk that you mentioned.
And I like cutting Dykman off of cards in this spot because you know that he has some high leverage draws, especially Walking Ballista.
And Dykman will untap with 6 mana. He'll draw a card, picked up a forest to go along with a natural state.
So you may be wondering about the natural state here, as you know, Perez has not produced targets for that over the course of the first 2 games. There are 2 copies of Dynavolt Tower in his deck, and it's a card you could reasonably expect to be in a blue-red control list with this many spells.
Yeah, it would make sense. And it would be a hard card for Steven Dykman to beat.
Yes.
If it showed up.
Right,
so.
he's got a lot of his deck is built around 3-toughness creatures.
It's time for a Hissing Quagmire. Beatdowns. Yep, quick trade. Maybe. Grasp? Okay. Negate.
Still not a bad trade there for Dykman being able to trade the Grasp, but I think from Perez's side, the most valuable thing is he got to trade with a turn. It was all of Dykman's mana.
That's it.
Yeah. Even on cards, didn't take any damage, got a land off the battlefield, and that was all Dykman did with his turn. Even though he lost a Torrential Gearhulk, I think Perez is still pretty happy with how that turn went.
Here's an attack for 5. Dykman going to fall down at 17. And while that attack 3 turns ago may have looked weird, Perez is, putting the pressure on.
Definitely.
Yep. Gotta get down from that 32.
Torrential Gearhulk is big enough that once, Dykman gets low enough, it's the abyss.
Yep.
And then stabilizing the game is very easy.
Glimmer of Genius, 2 energy here for Perez. He's going to go up to 10. Scry 2. Strawn 2. Does he have an answer for Kalidas?
It looks like Perez has brought in at least 1 copy of Ceremonious Rejection.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this thing. A fun card.
Is that all of them?
Yeah, that's the 4th one.
Yep. I mean, they do have a habit of finding each other.
They do, much like Revelations used to find each other.
Yeah, but in a much fairer way.
I agree, of course. Perez with a Harness Lightning. That'll take care of Kalidas. 10. Could attack for 14 with the Wandering Fumarole this turn if he'd like. And then he has a shock to make it 16. He's just a little short.
Well, he also has, if he makes this attack right here, he has 3 copies of the Abyss next turn.
Right.
Which is pretty nice.
That's a lot of those.
Yeah. As long as he's not at risk of getting killed by a Walking Ballista, and that requires 8 mana from Dykman.
Mm-hmm. 5, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Dykman should be down to 3. Dykman will concede the game. So Raymond Perez is going to win game number 2 here against Steven Dykman. Blue-red control, green-black aggro, going to game number 3.
And a lot of things happened that game, and the game went on for a very long time, but it was pretty much determined by Perez being able to Glimmer of Genius on turn 4 on a mostly clean battlefield, facing down only Kalidas. From there, he was able to use his life total as a resource, make his land drops, trade 1 for 1, draw additional cards, and then the cascading Torrential Gear Hulks wrapped it up pretty easily.
Now that you've seen how the players have sideboard a little bit, do you see any changes? They're obviously going back, but did anything stand out to you?
So, the fact that Dykman still had Grasp in his deck post-board means that if Perez was on the Dragon Master Outcast plan in Game 2, which I don't know if he was, but if he was, I would get rid of it because Dykman has enough mediocre removal to handle that sort of thing. On the other side, certainly the anti-artifacts, the natural state, did not look very good there. I don't know if he brought in 1 because he's got bad cards or if he brought in more to really fight over Dynavolt Tower, but especially on the play where I just want to curve out and be as efficient as possible, I would question the natural states from Dykman's side.
Well, those are the options there for both players. One more time. They've got about 13 minutes left to play game number 3, so we'll probably see some speed magic here. While they shuffle up and get ready, let's talk about the StarCityGames.com newsletter. It is your source for Magic Gathering news. We've changed it up. It's a new year. It's a new newsletter, but it is still free to sign up for.
And a lot of great information in the newsletter, highlights from some of our best articles, upcoming SCG Tour dates and locations. Find the nearest invitational qualifier or game night nearest to you, an exclusive cardboard crack comic, and best of all, signing up is free over at go.starcitygames.com/newsletter.
Probably have some updates on the results of this tournament as we make our way through a couple more rounds here, and then we'll make it to our quarterfinal voting for all of our wonderful subscribers at home over on twitch.tv/SCG Tour. I want to thank you guys for watching and joining us early this morning. Be a busy Sunday for everybody. A little NFL?
Yeah.
Huh? You ready for the old Super Bowl?
I
know your Giants are out of the running.
It's also just, I don't really care that
Big
much.
year for the Browns next year.
Yep.
Looking for 2 wins.
First overall pick, back-to-back years.
Going to find a way to blow that.
Right.
As game number 3 is on the way. Transgress the Mind here from Steven Dykman. A shock, 2 Glimmer of Genius, Dynavolt Tower. Glimmer of Genius down. In Island here from Perez, pass the turn back. Dykman. He's going to play a Swamp. And now another copy of Transgress. Harness Lightning was the draw.
Now it's interesting. Can you play through the Dynavolt Tower here, or do you have to take it? I mean, if you take those Glimmer of Geniuses, it's very hard for Perez to control everything he needs to control and get to 6 mana with a Torrential Gear Hulk.
His hand is so much worse without those 2 Glimmers, so it just makes a lot of sense to me. However, Dynavolt Tower is kind of the name of the game as here's Kalidas. We'll see if Dykman can work his way through that powerful artifact. Perez will play an Island. He's got 2 mystery cards, a Shock and a Harness Lightning in hand. Dykman will draw. Here's an attack for 3.
You see, Dykman desperately does not want to play that Rishkar into the shock that he knows about. So the hope here is that you can induce the shock or the use of the lone red mana that Perez has, and then that's your window to get Rishkar on the battlefield.
I'll tell you this much, it's not going to happen. Perez has demonstrated, the fact that he'll use his life total as a resource.
Yes.
So much in game number 2 that I would have been shocked, no pun intended,
I think that pun was intended.
that he would play the Harness Lightning at that stage. Now, that Revolutionary Rebuff is a real beating.
Yep.
That's a real beating. Harness Lightning not going to be played just yet. Dykman will draw. Was the knob Nixless?
That's a big draw.
Yeah, that is good. There's Harness Lightning. Is this going to resolve? Or is there another rebuff here? Negate. Okay, taken care of. More energy here for Perez, which means he's got a shot with the Dynavolt Tower now. Shock is the last card in Perez's hand. He'll draw a card. No fifth land.
Did Perez miss the trigger from Dynavolt Tower off the Harness Lightning?
No. He got 3 energy.
Okay,
And then used one.
right. Yep.
How does Dykman want to move forward now? This was kind of the worry, right? This is why he had the natural states in his deck, I think, before.
Yes, it was a concession to this card, and it was really bad in game number 2 where he just needed more cards that did something.
Sat in his hand the entire game.
And even still, at this point, the Dynavolt Tower really only amounts to Lightning Bolt. And that's probably less powerful than the Glimmer of Geniuses would have been in this spot.
I agree with that.
But if his threats are not well lined up here, it is complicated.
Dykman's going to turn on Hissing Quagmire and then play Rishkar. So Rishkar will enter the battlefield. We're going to see Shock on the creature land. We'll see Dynavolt Tower on the Rishkar. Now, if Perez draws a land this turn, that enters the battlefield untapped, which he did not, Dykman was going to be in some real trouble because he has a Jace in hand.
I think Dykman's still in huge trouble regardless.
I think you're right. Let's see what we have here. It's a new Dark Confidant, Glint Sleeve Siphoner. And now, is it a Winding Constrictor in hand?
And I think with Perez having Harness Lightning in hand plus the Jace, I mean, this is about the best setup you can ask for. It's a removal spell, it turns the Dynavolt Tower into another removal spell, and then you have Jace against nothing.
Yep. I think we're going to see both here, so. Shoot that down.
Yeah, you want to shoot down the Siphoner with the Harness because that gives you the most energy on the leftover.
Mm-hmm. And then shoot that down. Now Dykman's out of cards and Chase on an empty board.
And the Dynavolt Tower. I mean, this is Perez is way ahead now.
We'll take a look at Jace. We don't see this one a ton, and it's not a card you can play a lot of because it is 5 mana, but it's going to build a real advantage here. Yeah, and Dykman's going to concede right away. You can see Perez's hand of Revolutionary Rebuff and Disallow, and that Jace is going to just run away with the game. So Raymond Perez is going to win this match here over Steven Dykman. 2-1. 10-1 here for blue-red control. Green-black aggro and Steven Dykman no longer undefeated. He falls down to 10-1 for Perez. Good-looking control deck here.